Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talks with Professor Plunkett. This short talk today will be on the subject of file naming and storage of your digital files. In other words, the, the content that you create for the course, the assignments that you create and then submit to the course are in digital files, usually using something like Microsoft Word, Excel, or some other program. So what I want to talk about today is an organized way of naming those files and also storing those files to avoid confusion when you're trying to find documents. So let me share my screen for you. Also, this video will be available on YouTube as it will be put in multiple courses and will be available to you later on as well if you should be in another course with another instructor and you want to say, well, what did Professor Plunkett say about naming my files? So let me share the screen so I can get you right into it. We're going to have to look at a Microsoft Word document, but we're also going to look at a file convention. So if you have a Windows-based computer and you click on the little folder icon at the bottom of your screen, usually on your taskbar down here, you will bring up your filing system. Now, as you can see from the left side of mine is pretty extensive. And when I first bring up that screen, that icon, it's going to take me to like the main part of it. So I drilled down a little bit further for this particular activity because you probably don't have nearly as many files as I have developed over the years. And of course, the more that you do schoolwork, the more that you use, if you use the same computer for home finances or your medical documents or whatever, you need to be organized. Because if you're not organized, you could possibly have, as I do down here, a really long list of files. They say, well, where's that file? And this is just this long list of unfiled documents. Think of it like a bunch of papers sitting on a desk or a table somewhere that need to go into, say, a file drawer or file cabinet somewhere so that you can find them later, which is another important thing if you use paper documents, is to have a method of sorting them and filing them so that when you're looking for, say, a receipt for a certain medical visit that you had 3 months ago, that you can find it without having to go through 100,000 pieces of paper that you stuck somewhere. And of course, sometimes if we don't have that filing system, we wind up throwing stuff out, which we might need later. So that's good. It's good to have a sorting and filing system for your paper documents, but we're going to talk about doing them for your digital documents. But as you can see, each of these documents has something what we call a unique file name. And one of the reasons I'm doing this particular video is because some students, when they submit their assignments, they either use whatever Microsoft Word or whatever word processor they're using calls it. So Microsoft Word, by default, will call your file document. So it will be the first document that you ever create will be document 1. The second one will be document 2, 3, 4, 5, and go on and on and on. But you have no way when you're looking at those documents of knowing what they are. As you can see, there's nothing in here called document. But I have a whole lot of other things, and you can see they range from my whole tenure at Pierce College, going back to 2017. I actually started in 2016. Oh, there's something down here from 2016 that I used in class on the Fourth Amendment. So there's a lot of things in here. Some of these things should be filed in places like the Fourth Amendment stuff should be class resources. So I don't have everything totally organized. But I do have my course material. So one thing that I want to tell you is for organizing your files, you should have folders. And you see all these folders. So one of the things that you do, as you can see what I have, course documents, that's where we're going to go to look at how I file the things for my courses. Well, you want to put them somewhere. So this is my Pierce folder. As you can see on the left side here, I have a Pierce College folder. So that might be the first thing that you create in your hard drive. Wherever you store your documents, whether it's in a hard drive or up in a cloud storage, I use something called Dropbox. Google, you could use a Google Drive. If you're an Apple user, you have your Apple Drive or iDrive. If you are a Windows user, Windows actually has a drive as well, which is actually connected to this computer, but I hardly ever use it. So I have lots of places where I could store things. And the neat thing about cloud storage, just to throw that out there, is if you store on the cloud storage and you have it, what I do with Dropbox is I have it synced to any device that I have. Then if something happens to your computer, like I had a student a few years ago who was in a crash, and for whatever reason, her laptop was in the trunk of the car. And initially, because of the crash, it was not accessible because the vehicle was wrecked and towed, and she couldn't get to it. And then I think she found out that the laptop was destroyed anyway. So anything that she had in that laptop, initially, she couldn't get to it. Now, there are ways to get to that stuff, but she couldn't get to it at the time. But if you have cloud storage, so when I save, most of my documents is already synced to my Dropbox program. When I save something, it goes on to whatever computer I'm using at the time, but then it also, very shortly after that, gets uploaded to a file server somewhere else. So that's what cloud storage is, for those that don't know, is a file server, or you could call it a hard drive. It's a drive somewhere other than in your house. So Google has their servers are probably out in California. You know, the Windows one, I don't know where they're at. They're probably also in California, or no, actually Seattle is where a lot of Microsoft stuff is at. Dropbox, there's also one called Box. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them. Dropbox I like. A student introduced me to Dropbox about 7 years ago, and it was free. They'll give you, I believe, 5 gigabytes for free, which is plenty for most students if that's all you're using it for, to keep your assignments and even some of your personal stuff. You don't really need that much. So the 5 gigabytes is good. So Dropbox is a good thing. Look it up, and you can actually sign up for free. And then you download a small program to your computer, and you decide which files from your computer are going to be synced in the Dropbox. And then you save them there. So all these are in my main, as you can see, if I scroll up to here, see it says Dropbox. So all these folders are part of my Dropbox. I don't have, where that is. Your computer has its own file system. So the Microsoft one is called OneDrive. But here on every computer, Microsoft computer, Windows computer, you're going to have this PC, which is you're going to have your file system and storage. You're going to have a documents folder. I don't use that. You could use your documents folder there, but because I use the Dropbox, I save all of my stuff into files that I've created on Dropbox, which are also on my computer, but they're not in my regular documents file. So that's one point, is have backup systems. The Dropbox is a great, or OneDrive or Google's Drive, whatever you use, is an awesome thing, because if you save it there, and if you do like I do and sync it to other computers, then it's almost impossible to lose anything. Because I've had students who, professor, I was working on my assignment, I had 1 page left to do and my computer crashed. And of course, I have no way of verifying that story. It's a great story. But I'm like, did you back up anything? Well, no, I didn't know to do that. Well, do it. Whether you use a flash drive or thumb drive, whatever you want to call it, or you have a portable hard drive that you store your stuff on, or you use cloud storage, have it somewhere other than the computer that you normally use. So you would have it in both places. So that's first, really important thing is back up all your stuff somewhere. And then create a file system. So here on my Dropbox, I have my Pierce College folder. And as you can see for my own school stuff, I have a Capella folder up here for my Capella University for my doctoral program. So that's where all my school assignments are. And as you can see, it's a much smaller system, and I have courses. So if I go into my courses, I have a folder for every course, and I recommend that to you as well. A folder for every course. And then in your individual course folders, I break them down where I have an assignment folder. So for my students, usually you have an assignment every week and you have a final project. So those would go in here. I have a discussions folder. Now, in most learning management systems at Pierce College, we use Canvas. You can type right into a box in the discussion. And that works, except, you could time out especially since your discussions are supposed to be substantive and they should be, 2 or 3 paragraphs plus the sources. You could be typing that and then your computer crashes, you lose all your work. What I like to do is I type up my first discussion response, that long detailed response. I type it up in Microsoft Word. And then I save it. And I save it, I give it a file name, and I put it in the discussion folder. I also have in each class, or most of my classes, a research documents folder where I have specific articles that I have looked up and found for that course. And I save them because, especially if I'm working on a project, I may want to use that same source again. So I can go back to that source if I put it in my research document folder. And there's a couple of extraneous things here which didn't fit. In every course you're supposed to do a meet and greet. So I have they call it welcome and introduction in Capella. And so I have that file saved. Now the neat thing about having that welcome and introduction saved, think about it. I have to do that. You have to do that meet and greet in every course. I have to do a welcome and introduction in every course that I do. And they pretty much ask you to do the same thing in every course. They ask you to do a basic introduction of yourself, which isn't going to change much from course to course. And then they ask you, what do you expect to learn out of this in this course? How's it going to help your job? They ask you some specific things about the course. But the first paragraph or so where you're doing your introduction, depending on how long you like to write an introduction, I usually do a pretty detailed one. I'm 60 years old. I have a full career before becoming a college professor and, educational stuff. And I like to share that. And of course, I also share that in my classes with my students so they know who I am and know that I'm a person. So I have this file sitting here. Welcome and introduction. So if I get into another class and I want to just use that same biographical information, at least, I can open this file and copy it or save it and rename it for the current course, and then modify it, and then I can copy it into the discussion that we use for the meet and greet or welcome and introduction. So this is a basic file structure. So you have a file for whatever college or university you're going to. And again, this is going to be posted on YouTube, so there might be other people that see this. I happen to be taking my doctoral program at Capella. I teach at Pierce College in Philadelphia, so my students would have a Pierce College folder, as I do. Then a subfolder to break down the courses that you're taking. You should have a course folder or courses folder. As opposed to, you might have a financial aid folder, you might have a registration folder. There might be other things that you are working on with the college. The number of documents will probably be smaller, but you should have them separate from your coursework. So you have a course folder, and then you have to create an individual folder for each course. That's what I do, so that I can find the things while I'm working on that particular course. I can easily go into these folders and find what I'm looking for. So then how do we name the files? Well, let's look at this assignments folder. So this assignments folder, I name my file by the course number And in Capella, they use CRJ, and in Pierce, we use CJS. But use the course number, and then something to indicate the assignment. So you may just use assignment 1, because in my classes at Pierce, each week the assignment number is the same as the week number. So you could use assignment 1, 2, 3, 4. Or what I do for my Capella, they always have it where it's unit 3, so that might be the 3rd week of the course, and assignment 1. And each week, the assignment is still called assignment 1. So I have to break it down further by having unit 4 assignment 1, unit 6 assignment 1, because they use assignment 1 all the way through. And that's that way, because maybe there's an assignment 2 some week. That's rare, but it could happen. Certainly, if we go back to the discussions, you'll see that there's 2 discussions each week. So I have unit 3 discussion 1, unit 3 discussion 2. And that's just unit 3, D1, D2. So you can use abbreviations. But the main point here is to name these files in such a way that when you go back and look, you're going to say, oh yeah, that's the one I want. Because maybe you're working on a project, but you know you already wrote a paper on the same topic. Well, you might go to a previous course where you know you wrote a paper and you need some information. Maybe you need one of the sources that you use because you already have a good reference list. You can go back and find that stuff more easily if you have a good file name. So what I have is, let's just look at the bottom one because it's easier to see. It's the course number, the assignment identification. So for this, it's unit 10A1, and then a title, whatever the title is. That's what I use for my assignments. So that gives me a really good idea that I can just go into this folder, and if I'm looking for a psychological profile of somebody, yeah, there they are. I had, in this particular course, I had to do 2 different psychological profiles. So one was, and actually I made it a little bit longer. You can't see it because it's not visible, but this title is much longer. It actually tells you who the profile's on for both of those. So if I happen to decide to do more details on John DuPont as part of my final project, I can quickly look, oh, psychological profile on criminal offender, part 2, John DuPont. So, okay, that's the one I want. And I can go right to it. So that's the importance of using file names. And this is a structure that I would recommend is your course number, identifier for the assignment, and then the title of the assignment. And like I said, I do the same thing for my discussions in a separate folder. So you have the course number, identifier for the discussion, and then I have whatever each of the discussions in Capella, they have a title. So I just use whatever the title is in the course. I use that same title. So if your discussions have titles, some of ours at Pierce, they don't have specific titles for the discussion. You could just use, week 1, discussion 1, week 1, discussion 2, or you give it a title based upon what it's about from the description. But the importance is it's got to be something that you can go back to follow up and find it. One example is in the corrections course that I taught in the previous term. In one of the discussions, this discussion 2 for the week, asked essentially the same question as the assignment for the week. So usually in discussions in online or asynchronous learning, you do the discussion, the first post for discussion is usually due sometime in the middle of the week. So my courses at Capella run from Monday through Sunday. So every single first post for my discussions are due on Thursday night. So in my corrections course that I taught last session, one of the discussions asked essentially the same question as the assignment. So if you finish the discussion midweek, and then maybe the weekend you're working on your assignment, you could refer back to the discussion for additional information to help you finish the assignment. But if you haven't labeled it properly, or you haven't typed it up like I do, then you're not going to find it. So that's an important thing as well. Like I said, a lot of times students will just use the default file name. So let's look at Microsoft Word for a second. So here's a Microsoft Word document. As you can see up the top there, by default, Microsoft Word calls this document 6. So, this is just a test document that I wrote up. It says document 6. So when I'm complete document 6, I want to be able to figure out what it is later on, as we just discussed. When I go file, if I just do file and save, because it's the first time, this is a brand new document, it's going to prompt me and ask me where I want to put it. So depending on which version of Microsoft Word you're using, you're going to get different ways this looks as far as where. Now, if you're working on the same course week to week, you might actually see your course, your discussion folder that you're using right then and there, assignment. But as you can see here, this has got multiple ones, so it doesn't have, and it's got a whole lot of them. So this version of Microsoft Word that I'm using, throws up all these right away that I could use. I don't usually use this unless it pops right out. What I prefer to use in Microsoft Word is the browse feature. The browse feature then brings up your file explorer, and then I can then go and find, whether it be my Capella folder, if I'm doing an assignment for Capella, or let's go into our Pierce College folder, and then I need to scroll down to my course folder, which you're going to have a lot fewer folders than I do, so it'd be easier to find. But here I have a course documents folder. Again, call it whatever you want. I call it course documents because this is the folder where I have my lesson plans, the folder where I have the PowerPoints for each of the courses, all those things, because I'm teaching these courses. I'm not taking them as a student. So in my Pierce College folder, I have the course documents folder, which then is broken down, as you can see, by course. So right now I'm teaching CJS 101, which is Introduction to Criminal Justice, and CJS 107, which is Criminology. So right now, the students that will first see this, more than likely, are students in one of those courses. So let's say you're a student in one of those courses, CJS 101, a fairly new student to criminal justice. You click into that folder, and then you have, like I said before, an assignment folder. So let's say for some reason it's not here, you can always create, and I didn't tell you how to do that. In Microsoft Word, you have the option of creating a new folder. So here comes a new folder, and then let me call it test assignments. So you could just call it assignments or call it whatever you want. And then, so there it is. And then that assignment is, that folder is highlighted. I can click open. And then, so here's another little trick that Microsoft does, Microsoft Word. Microsoft Word, if it understands the first few words of your assignment, it will automatically give you the option of naming that assignment based upon those words. So you saw the only thing I had typed in this document was my course document, and you see what it says, my course document. So I could easily just click save and I'll have my course document. But what that means is if you do that like that all the time, it might, again, this depends on which version of Microsoft Word. Some will by default save it as document something. Others will grab that first few words from your paper and use that as a suggested title. Well, what I said to you is you don't use that suggested title. Call it whatever, something based upon what it is. So now we're in Criminal Justice 101, CJS 101. So I'm in my assignments, my test assignments folder for Criminal Justice 101. So I'm going to call this assignment CJS 101. Oh, wow, something screwy happened here. All right, let's do that again. I don't know why that happened. It might have saved it automatically. Yeah, it did. That's messed up. So what happened was when I was clicking the buttons, I must have accidentally hit something that saved this document. You see what the name of the document is? It saved it as my course document. Well, I don't want it to be that. So another thing you can do, now if I click save now, it's just going to continue to save it. So no matter what I do, if I add to it, it's always going to have the same file name, and it's going to save it wherever I was at the time. It doesn't matter. Well, I don't like this file name. So I have two options. I could actually go back into the File Explorer and just find the document and change the file number or file name, which I can show you how to do that later. Or I can go here, since I still have the document open, I click Save As. And then, as you can see, here is a suggestion of the folder. So that's the actual folder that we were in. So I could actually change it right here. And I could make it CJS 101 test document. And then that will save it. As you see, it's changed now, the CJS 101 test document. Or maybe I want to actually see what else is in that folder. So again, I can go Save As. And I don't want to, I could change it here if I wanted. I could create a new folder, but then it's going to, I don't want to get into all that right now, but it might ask me where I want that folder to be. Or I could just do the browse option again. And as you can see, when I do the browse option in this short period of time, it actually takes me right back to the last folder that I was in. So now I can see in this folder, I have two different documents here. And these are both the same document, because this one I saved by accident and it just created the default name. And then this one I did the file, the save as, and then changed it right in this box up here. But here you can actually go into this File Explorer. And let's say I want to save it as something else, and boom, there it is. So, and the other way to change the file name is you have to close the file. So I've saved it. So I know this is all saved. And it's saying, you want to save changes to test document? Oh, because I changed. Now, why is it asking me this? It's asking me this now because I did a save as. And it's saved as with a different name, but the original document with just test document is still here. So if I'm not sure whether I want to save it or not, you click save, then you don't lose it. If you know for sure, well, I've already saved the most recent and I don't need to do this again, I can click don't save. So then it closes it and I'm done. All right, so now I uploaded the file. Let's say that you upload the file to the course. It was an assignment in one of your courses. You go into your learning management system, follow the instructions, and you submit your assignment. And then for some reason, your instructor notifies you that your assignment is not there and asks that you upload the assignment again. Or maybe you made a mistake, which I've had students do before, and you uploaded the wrong assignment. And the professor's like, this is an assignment from a totally different course, which also happens if you don't have a good file system. I've had students who uploaded assignments from another course that they took before that had nothing to do with what we were working on. And I had to tell them, you know, this assignment doesn't count. I need you to upload the correct assignment, which then I have to go in and delete it from the learning management system so they can upload the next one. You know, it's a royal pain, you know where. So I want to find this thing that I just saved. So that was where? It was in my Pierce College folder, and it was in my course documents folder. So you're going to have file names. Hopefully you won't have anywhere near as many as I have, because I obviously am working on a whole lot of stuff as part of my job at the college, and there's all kinds of different things, and I have to keep them separate, or I would just spend time. Again, think about if you have a home office Some of you do, and many of you probably don't have the room to have a home office. But I've seen pictures, whether it's on TV or in commercials, whatever, where people use like part of their dining room or kitchen even as their office for doing their home finances and doing their schoolwork. And let's say you have all these papers that are piled up on these desks or tables or whatever, and you have to find one thing, and it's just this big pile of paper. Well, because you have no filing system, you have to go search through that whole pile of paper till you find the right one. So that's why it's important to have these folders. So now we go into our course documents folder. Have to double click to get there. Which course did I put it in? Remember, we put that in CJS 101. And then we created a test assignment folder just for this exercise. After I'm done this video, I will go back and delete this so it doesn't confuse me that I have this folder here. So our test assignment folder, and we see that I have test document and my course document. And for some reason, there was an error that the test document 1 that I created might have been the one that I said don't save. So that's not there. So you would have had to save at that juncture, save it to make it work. But here we have the original document, my course document, and I actually have my File Explorer set up that I have a what they call a preview pane. So when I click on the document, it'll actually appear over here. And of course, this is a very short document, but you notice that it's over here. And if I click on the other one, so these documents are identical. So do I need both of them? No, I don't need both of them. So I don't want to get cluttered with stuff. They're the exact same document. I saved the one by accident. So let's delete the one I don't need, and now it's gone. And because I have Dropbox, this is asking me if I want to delete it from other devices, because it's already, and this is a great example for you, it's already been saved online to the server somewhere. So if this computer crashed right now, I could actually go on another computer and find this file. So I want to delete it, boom, delete it. It's gone from all of my devices. So you can see down here, there's a little Dropbox icon down in the bottom here. That's my little Dropbox program that I downloaded to my computer that controls my Dropbox, but I'm not going to get into that right now. If you are interested in how Dropbox works, they have videos that explain it. It's dropbox.com, DROPBOX.com. And I highly recommend it. I actually subscribe. I get 50 gigs a year. I'm not anywhere near using it, but for free, you can get 5 gigabytes to store your files. So here I have my test document. Again, the real point of this video is to make sure people use file names that you can recognize so that you can then find your assignments later on. And on my side, it's very helpful if you have a unique file name. And you might even, what I do sometimes for my assignments at Capella is I might even at the end of the title put either a dash or an underscore and then my last name. And why would you do that? Well, if we look at some of the courses in let's say in my CJS 107 class, if I look at, and this is not sharing any student information other than the fact that the assignment was turned in, but if I quick look at assignment 1, if I scroll down on this particular way we have it set up, if I scroll down the bottom of the page, we see the file name. So this student said week 1 assignment. This student called it now. This student called it CJS 107 week 1, week 1 criminology, CJS 107, and week 1 assignment. Now, they're all different, but I have no idea whose they are. And although I don't usually do it this way, there is an option for instructors to download all of these papers at once. And of course, if they all had the same name, that might be a difficulty. Once you download them, your computer is going to have to rename some of them so they don't overwrite each other. That's another issue, which if you continuously name the file by the same name, then it will write over any other file that you had with that name on your computer, which is another very important reason to use different file names for all of your assignments. So I think we concluded basically what we wanted to get into. So let's recap. One, it's important to have a good filing system so that you have your college, then you have a course folder, and you have a folder that's by your course. So for each of your courses, you have a folder. Yeah, look at all these courses I've taken so far. And I'm in one of these courses right now. As you can see, this has got the most recent dates. But I don't have an assignment due until like next week. So if we look inside one of these course folders, I have them broken down different ways. You notice in the last one I showed you, I said it was research. Here I have a readings folder. So some of my courses don't have textbooks, and they have readings from scholarly articles from the library. And so I'll download those papers and I'll save a copy in the readings folder or research folder or whatever you call it. The difference here is the readings folder is the assigned readings that are in the course. The miscellaneous research folder are additional things that I found that I'm using in the course. But your basic folders, you're going to have assignments and discussions and anything else that you think that you need to successfully complete your course. So if you look in your assignments folder, again, assignments, the course number, and this one was the final paper for the course. But if we go in one of the weekly assignments, so we have the Microsoft Word documents. This gets a little confusing because there's also some PDFs in here. But the Microsoft Word documents are the ones that I completed and uploaded to the course. So I have a CRJ 7015, Unit 02, Assignment 1, and then the title of the assignment was Criminal Justice Theory in Action was the title. So that helps me to identify this. So you want to have a unique file name for all of your assignments. All right. And those important things, having a good file structure and a unique file name, are the basic things that I wanted to get out to you today to try to get us all on the same page so that you can help yourself to be a more organized student. And you can also retrieve these documents should they get lost or should you need them to use for another course. And you remember, you cannot use the same paper for another assignment without permission of your instructor, but you can use it for information to help you do your research for another assignment. You know, if you in your corrections class did a paper on decarceration, in other words, lowering the number of people that are incarcerated in our criminal justice system, which was related to your corrections class, obviously, and then say a year or so later in your bachelor's capstone class, you wanted to do a more detailed study of decarceration, there would be no problem with going back and looking up the sources that you used in your other paper, look at some of the things that you said in your other paper, and using that information, certainly not copy it word for word, but using that information in your research for your project in your capstone class. So, you know, why reinvent the wheel? If I did the research already, then I should be able to go back and use that research again. All right, but remember, you cannot use an entire paper. You can't not do the work for a course by copying something you did in another course and just sticking it in there. That's not going to work. And since we all use, my college, Pierce College, uses Turnitin, it's going to recognize that this was 100% copied from somewhere else. There's also something called Safe Assign, which we're using now at Capella, which does essentially the same thing. And all assignments generally are passed through these plagiarism checkers that will then report to the instructor how much of your document is copied. So you can't like copy an entire paper for one course and upload it in another, but you certainly can go back and use it to help you research and write papers for another course. All right, so I think that about covers what I wanted to cover. If you have any questions, those of you that are my students, you have my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out. Those of you that are out in the wild on the internet and you have a question about this, I would suggest a variety of options. Microsoft has a lot of instructional and tutorial videos on their website. The American Psychological Association has a lot of good information about proper citations and APA and writing papers and what have you. So there's a lot of good sources to get this type of information. But you could always, and I know people always do on the videos that I post publicly, post a question in the comments below this video. So thank you very much. And everyone have a wonderful day, evening, whatever it is. Hopefully you're all safe. Bye-bye.